Guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Snob Neighbor Ripped Out the Property Boundary Fence Posts to Expand His Land. I taught him a lesson. TLDR. Neighbor has largest yard in the entire neighborhood. One day he paves his yard and I see him move the fence posts more onto my property, giving himself more land. I tell him not to do it and he yells and tells me to stay out of it. I wait until he is gone for a month to tell the town and find out he had been doing this for years in every direction. They tear up his yard, tow his car, and move the fences back where they are supposed to go. When he gets home, he is met with costs that are $70,000 and the small yard he was supposed to have. I taught him that going against me is going to end with karma biting you in the ass with a little help from me. I have the kind of neighbor that thinks he walks on water and is better than everyone else in the neighborhood. Personally, I know that it shouldn't bother me how other people are, but I am not a perfect person and get very irked by that mindset. In addition to being a huge narcissist, he also ended up having the largest piece of property out of everyone else. Now I moved in next to him, so I didn't really think much of this, and I learned quickly that I wanted nothing to do with this guy. He didn't say anything offensive or wrong, he was just a snob that wouldn't stop bragging. When I first moved in, I made the mistake of trying to be a friendly neighbor to him and starting up conversations. They quickly turned into him just talking about how many amazing things he has and the new car that he got. He would talk about how important he was at his job and how he was an amazing golfer. Basically, this guy only wanted to talk to people in order to talk about himself instead of having a conversation. Talking to him was really annoying and I am sure everyone would excuse me for the fact I avoided him. After that I gave up trying to be a nice and friendly neighbor. I was to my other neighbors though who were nice people, and I could safely say good morning to. I wish the story could be about how those neighbors are awesome, but I need to shift the focus back to what evil neighbor was doing. The thing he would talk about the most was how much land he had compared to everyone else. He seemed just really proud of his land, and nobody saw it as a big deal except for him. One day he decided that his amazing backyard needed something special, so he dug the entire thing up and decided to cover it. I don't know the technical term for what he did because he didn't pave it like a driveway and he kind of covered it in like tiles almost. So maybe a version of paving that would make him look fancier than he actually was. My main thought during this entire thing was that if he had so much money, why he was doing this backbreaking work himself, since he was the type to consider stuff like that beneath him. I know it might sound a little messed up, but it was fun secretly watching him look like the total opposite of what he tried to show off. Back to what he was doing, I didn't mind it since it was his land after all. I moved inside to do some work and my office window faces that side of the house where I share a border with neighbor. I know that in most areas fencing is something at the discretion of the personal owners, but here it is a little different. There are post fences that are identical for everyone's property and my guess is it is to make the neighborhood look nicer. Neighbor thought that I couldn't see him when he started to slowly take out the posts one by one. I was intrigued and focused on what he was doing to see that with each post he took a couple of steps towards my land and hammered the posts back in. I finally realized that his land might not all be his and this is how he was making it bigger. I ran outside to stop him before he could place anything on what was my property. Me. Stop. You can't just move the posts to give yourself more land. There are property lines for a reason and this part of my backyard. Neighbor. You stay the hell out of my business. You just move in and think that you know everything and get into my business? I have been here a lot longer than you and no more. I suggest you go back in your house before I make you look even more a fool. Me. I am telling you right now that if you don't move the posts back or if you pave my land you are going to be the fool. I went back inside and obviously my threat fell on deaf ears. He kept the posts where he moved them and paved the area, now making his property larger. He wanted the room there to park his new car and also some type of scooter cart that he owned. He thought that he won, but actually I was just waiting for the right moment. I found out that he goes on a month-long trip every summer and as soon as he left, I called the town to let them know what was going on. They came out and saw that he had done this on all three sides of the property and was way over the lines that were his property. They wanted to move everything back and gave him a week to do so himself. His car and cart were on what was technically my land and I made sure those got towed. After a week with no response, they dug up all the tile themselves and moved the posts back where they were supposed to be. This time they used some cement to make them harder to move and I overheard them talking about slowly doing that around the whole neighborhood to be safe. Now his yard was the normal size, and his wonderful car was towed. That wasn't everything since the town was not happy by the stunt he pulled and the fact he wasn't able to respond. Nobody was going to call and warn this guy due to everyone hating his guts. His door gets filled with notice and he got some major fines in the mail. First, he got fined for what he did, which I consider the base. Then for all those days he didn't respond to the town, he got fined. Then the town charged him for the workers needed to tear up his pavement and reset the posts. Finally, he had to pay for all those days his car was impounded. He came back from his vacation and was shocked at the messages on his door and the fact that his yard was now a fraction of what it used to be. He had been inching the posts a little bit over a long period of time, so it was less noticeable. At the end he had to pay about $70,000 and I never did see that car of his again. My guess was he had to sell it to pay the town for all of that trouble. I smile whenever I see him now and he looks away and walks. Although he has no proof, he knows that I was the one that called the town, and I don't mind that he knows. I told him that if he didn't stop what he was doing I was going to make him look like a fool. It was his fault for not believing me and now he learned that if I say something it will happen. Now he gets to be average like the rest of us instead of the rich snob he pretended he was. The next story is titled, "My entitled nephews stole from me one time too many. This time I got them arrested, and now my sister and Bill have to deal with the fallout. And I really don't care anymore." In a prior post in a different subreddit, I asked if I was the bad guy for wanting to call police on my nephews for stealing from me. And the overwhelming support I got made me realize that standing my ground was the best thing for me to do. About midway last week when I came home from work, I noticed my shed door was open and the padlock that I used to keep it shut was broken. And I had a lot of bags full of soda cans in there. I and my friends tend to drink a lot of soda, so I've built up a lot of cans over the course of about a year. And I was going to cash them in at the bottle drop soon because I like big payouts. It's 10 cents a can where I live after all. But there was more than just my bags of cans missing from the shed too. They took my gardening shears, a steel rake, 2 shovels, one of them being one of those folding camping ones, a full 2-gallon gas can, a cheap power drill I got for like $5 used, an electric hedge trimmer, and a small electric chainsaw that was also used, and a machete. They didn't touch the lawnmower, weed whacker, extension cords, or the old radio I had in there. No idea why they took what they did. But I guess they figured they could resell them or something. I checked my camera footage and there were my 3 nephews, ages 16, 15, and 14, breaking into my shed with one of their dad's large claw hammers. I recognized the hammer because it's bright yellow and black, and their dad has a bunch of them. It only took them a few hits to smash that cheap lock. After they first broke into my shed, they took what they could by hand. And then they came back with some shopping carts that I'm guessing they also stole. But it took them a few trips to get all of the cans. And they didn't bother to even try and close the door when they were done. My sister and Bill first denied their kids stole anything from me. So, I went to their house and showed them the security footage from my cameras. I'd not told them I'd had cameras installed. And the reason I had the cameras put in was because of prior thefts by my nephews. It started with food and snacks. And then moved on to DVDs and video games. Then pretty much anything they thought they could smuggle out after that. And any time I made them return stuff they'd stolen from me, I was treated like the bad guy and then got the fakest apologies I've ever heard. And they never got in much trouble from their parents either. The final straw happened last year when my nephews broke into my house and stole 3 6-packs of my favorite blood orange beer from my fridge. They used my hidden spare key to get in, and also took a huge dump in one of my bathrooms and not only didn't flush, but also peed all over the floor. And I'm pretty sure it was intentional. The beer they stole was hidden in one of their bedrooms when I confronted my sister and Bill about my nephews stealing it. And I was basically given an equivalent to boys will be boys when I wanted them punished. So, I had the cameras put in and told no one. Which was a smart move. When my sister and Bill saw the camera footage of my nephews stealing from me, they seemed furious. But they were actually madder that their boys skipped school to steal from me. They'd spent all day making repeated trips to the bottle drop and cashing the cans by machine. The bottle drop also pays by machine. So, they just kept bringing the cans in till they cashed them all. And then they bought video games and junk food with the money. Said money actually amounted to nearly $200. With that and the destroyed padlock, I told my sister and Bill that they now owed me $200. My sister and Bill went from being angry at their kids to making excuses for them, and then being angry at me for wanting that money back when I know they have 3 kids and a mortgage. I said it was either that or I go to the police and press charges. They told me to get out, and I said they have 2 days to decide how to pay me back before I go to the cops. I got back everything else my nephews stole, machete and gas can included. Though they'd already used the gas for something. But over the next couple of days my sister and Bill were blowing up my phone with a ton of messages. Both verbal and text. At first, they were calling me heartless because it was right after the holidays, and they have 3 kids and a mortgage. Then they started gaslighting me. Then even threatening me. And all of this would go in a repeating cycle. My nephews chimed in from another cell phone and were sending me lots of messages of their own, which were more fake apologies and gaslighting. My eldest nephew even sent me a picture of himself holding a soda can and giving me the middle finger. So, I guess they weren't taking my threats of going to police seriously because family. When I last spoke with my sister and Bill, they refused to negotiate any sort of method of repayment for what my nephews did. Even when I suggested they just sell the video games that were purchased with the money from the cans. Then they had the audacity to say I'd actually tempted my nephews by having the cans in my shed to begin with. Oh yes, I'm the devil's snake that tempted my nephews with a shed full of cans that just screamed money, money, money. So that was it. I went to the police station that morning and filed the report. Gave them a copy of the video footage of my nephews stealing from my shed. I gave them the broken lock they smashed. Showed them all of the texts, which were screenshotted and also given as evidence. Hell, I even gave them a copy of the photo my eldest nephew sent me of him flipping me off. I did tell police that I found it worrisome that my nephews had taken the machete. But they classified it as a tool. Especially since they took a lot of other actual tools. So fair enough on that, I suppose. But my nephews were indeed arrested on Saturday. Police came to their house and my sister and Bill were forced to let them in because they had a warrant. Apparently all 3 of my nephews went from being cocky little shits to crying like babies when they were being put in cuffs. I know this because a neighbor I'm acquainted with that sort of friends with my sister was there to see it. And shortly after the arrest my sister and Bill were blowing up my phone again. They weren't able to get their kids out of jail till Monday morning. And now the boys are being charged with larceny, willful destruction of property and vandalism, and harassment. The police took this whole case pretty seriously as there has been complaints about my nephews for some time. But nothing was proven until now. The past few months bags of cans have actually been going missing all over the area. Don't know if it was my nephews or not. But they're likely suspects. And with word spreading of their arrest, let's hope other neighbors with security cameras come forward with more footage. My sister and Bill showed up at my house too. I refused to open the door and told them that this all happened because they are enablers who refuse to hold their kids accountable for their actions. That made them just scream and pound on my door more till I threatened to call police on them too. And since I've done it already, they know I mean it now. So, they left without any more trouble. But they went back to blowing up my phone. I didn't block my sister or Bill. Instead, I decided to just save all of the messages they send me because I've made the decision to take them to small claims court over this. I don't really need or want the money and have already replaced the destroyed padlock with a much better one. However, the kids aren't the only ones who need to be taught a lesson. In the end, I hope I put them in enough of a hole that they learn not to screw with me ever again. I also have the full support of my family on this. My parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, etc. They're all supporting me in this because my nephews have stolen from them too. And after banning my nephews from my house, some of them did the same. I'm going to push for my nephews to get community service. And the reason why isn't just because it's a good idea, but also because I know that they'll hate that the most. Whenever made to do any kind of work they don't want to do, they just stand around griping and act like the whole world is against them. So hardly anything ever gets done. Perhaps a few hundred hours of unpaid work will teach them some manners. They've been spoiled far too much. The last story is titled, "My Neighbor is a Crazy Karen Dog Lady." Me and my wife, both 35, We have twin girls that are almost 2. Which, as you may know, is a handful. The girls were getting to that age of crawling and running around, and my neighbor's tree was always shedding almost like berry-looking things, but it was disgusting, and I was worried about my girls. Not only eating them but crawling and walking in the backyard, and they could be dangerous to step on. Also, these branches were on my side of the fence, so I cut them down from the middle of the concrete divider wall. Also, I work in low-voltage construction in hospitals, and I got a whole set of cameras for free, which I put up around my house. My neighbor is a 50-year-old, large woman, who lives with only dogs, and when we were getting along, she would complain about everyone. I also did a few things for her to help her out. She confronted me about the tree, and I basically told her that I would do it again, and that if it's on my property, that I can cut it. Since then, about a year ago, I haven't said a word to her. She has complained about anything she could. I had a wooden pallet on the side of my house for 3 days and she took pictures and complained, and I got a letter in the mail. Last night my wife was on Facebook, and she saw that the lady ranted on Facebook telling all her friends that I was a pervert because I have cameras. I'm a short shit because I needed a ladder to cut branches on a 20-foot tree. She also thinks that because I work in low voltage that I scrambled her Nest camera when I cut the tree. Little does she know her cameras run off of solar, and it was a rare overcast day in Vegas. She also thinks that I came on her side to get rid of the leaves, which I didn't do, and said I sprayed poison on her tree, which I didn't do. I let this lady crane a pool over my house. One time a pallet with pavers was blocking my driveway, which I said okay too. She puts bags of her dog's shit in front of her house in a bag for the garbage men. She's nuts. She put an umbrella the size of a satellite, and a clothesline with a sheet to block my view because I am a pervert. Another thing she did to her neighbor behind her is play Baby Shark over concert speakers extremely loud because construction workers were listening to Spanish music, and she didn't like it. I can live with most of it, but when you call me a pervert because I am trying to keep my family safe, that I have an issue with. And trust me Karen, nobody wants to spy on you. You are vile and disgusting. Do I have any recourse that I should do? Is it defamation of character or anything posting on Facebook? Some people commented with threatening things. Get a gun, put electric lines in the tree. I'm done venting. Hope you liked my story. Thanks for listening.